Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Wagner's Lohengrin with Axel Koba on the podium, which I saw at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. And this was also the same production I saw about 7 months ago, even though I was not really a fan of it. So why is it that I returned to this particular production? It was because of one singer, Elisabete Matos, who was making her role debut as Ortrud at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. She was a dramatic soprano whose career I have been following for quite some time, starting off with a production of Das Rheingold at the Teatro del Liceu in Barcelona, Spain, released a DVD where she sang the role of Freya, and I thought she did very fabulously in that part, and it was a great first impression of what Madame Matos was capable of. Much like a lot of dramatic sopranos who have made the transition from Elsa to Ortrud, i.e. Leonie Rezanek, Ingrid Bjorna, and Eva Marton, and also Eva Johansson, Elisabete Matos began with singing a lot of the full lyric slash spinto soprano roles of Micaela from Carmen, Leonora from Trovatore, and Bellini's Norma before transitioning into the heavier repertoire consisting of Abigail from Verdi's Nabucco, and eventually the Wagnerian repertoire of Brunhilde, Isolde, Sieglinde, and of course tonight's Ortrud. And I thought she did very well, both vocally and dramatically. Dramatically, she was able to make Ortrud a very human character. She was able to make her cunning, intelligent, crafty, resourceful, and a lot of other brilliant characteristics that make Ortrud all the more human and all the more lifelike because, as I stated before, she is a woman who is living through a lot of tough times during the Middle Ages, and she has to fight to survive for her own beliefs and for who she is as a person, and she manages to make all of those characteristics shine with such aplomb and such intelligence. That is just how brilliant of a performer Madame Matos is in terms of this particular character. And vocally, she was solid all throughout. She was able to sing all of her lines really, really well, helped with her plush, dramatic soprano voice, which she has able to build up for many years. And it really shows that her voice has that luminous quality and at the same time has that sheen that makes it so lifelike and so charismatic. Yes, she doesn't have Helena Brown's plushness, nor Elena Nicolai's raw and sheer power, nor Astrid Varnay's metal, Margaret Harshaw's overall plushness and luxurious tones, nor the venom and bite of Christa Ludwig, Rita Gore, and Waltraud Meyer, but she is still a very solid performer in this particular role. She was able to give it her all as Ortrud, and she held nothing back whatsoever, but she was still able to find a lot of great human qualities which define Ortrud as a character, which also reflects in how she was able to act with her voice. She was a very riveting performer from beginning to end, and she was just so exciting as Ortrud, even though she does have some vocal qualities that she is kind of lacking here and there, but that's just me. She's still a very fine performer, and I have to give her loads of kudos for throwing herself 100% into this particular role with aplomb and intelligence that she was able to make Ortrud alive as a character. Annetta Dash was yet another soprano whose career I've also been following for quite some time, and she also sang the role of Elsa not only in this particular opera house, but also in other venues like the Bayreuth Festival and La Scala Milan. And she manages to do a very fine job as Elsa, with her fine and gorgeous lyric soprano voice, and it also helps that she is a very lovely figure on stage as she manages to make Elsa youthful, charming, but at the same time, she doesn't just make Elsa another pretty face. She also makes her suffer all throughout the opera both intrinsically and at times slightly physically, but mostly on a psychological level. Yes, she may not have the luxurious musicianship of, let's say, Elisabeth Gruma, Eleanor Stieber, Lisa de la Casa, Elisabeth Schwarzkopf, and Heather Harper, nor the slightly meatier tones of Hildegard Hillebrecht, Anna Tomova-Sintov, and Yulia Varadi, but she is still a very fine actress who is able to embody the role of Elsa with such beauty, such frailty, but at the same time, some amounts of inward strength that she was able to summon throughout the entire opera. And she was just a very fine interpreter of this role all throughout. And she is a very fine musician, even though she does have the tendency to over-articulate and push certain notes. But it is still a very fine instrument that she has. And when she sings softly, she sings so gorgeously and so heavenly that I was practically captivated with her soft singing. And when she had to let it all out, she did let it all out, even though there are times I felt like it was a slightly pushed tone. But despite those said setbacks, it is still a very solid instrument that she has, and she is still a very fine interpreter of Elsa, bringing out her frailties, her anxieties, and that girlishness that she was able to give, because Elsa, at least in my opinion, is pretty much one of the youngest singing characters in the entirety of Lohengrin. And she was just a fine interpreter of this role all throughout, even though I would have loved to have a slightly fuller voice in terms of singing this role, but she was still very good all throughout. Then we go to the titular hero of Lohengrin, sung by the veteran Heldentenor Peter Seifert. And at first I was quite skeptical with how he was going to perform this particular role, which has been his signature part for quite some time, as Peter Seifert is in his 60s, and I was quite scared that he was going to have a wobble. Well, not tonight. He was in tip-top form, as he has always been, and he still manages to maintain that youthfulness, freshness, and nobility in one fantastic package. He's also been another singer I have been following for quite some time, as he started out somewhere in the 80s to early 90s with slightly lyrical roles like Don Ottavio, and even some of the more spinto roles, before heading towards the more Heldentenor parts of Tannhäuser, Siegmund, and Tristan, and even Otello by Verdi. You could definitely tell that this gentleman was a very consummate and very fine singing actor all throughout. He held nothing back whatsoever, and his pure sense of theatricality and musicianship shone throughout the entire opera from beginning to end. And he was always an exciting performer, vocally and dramatically, as he was able to give the goods in everything that he was offering, and he was just excellent all throughout. He still remains vocally exciting and dramatically wonderful all throughout, and you could definitely feel it in his voice. I was almost in tears when he was singing Infernumland, and even his first act scene, Nun sei bedankt mein lieber Schwan. I was practically so involved in his portrayal of his signature part that I was completely excited for Infernumland, and he really gave the goods with that particular aria, and he was, as always, noble, dignified, and he was just wonderful all throughout. And he held nothing back whatsoever. His voice still maintains that fine polish, that awesome timbre, and he was just handsome on stage. Wolfgang Koch was an absolutely wonderful Telramund, and he's been performing this part for quite some time. He held nothing back as Telramund, even though I did notice that he was coughing a bit on stage mostly because he was a little bit under the weather, but he held nothing back whatsoever as he was able to muscle through all of his lines, and he was able to give such a riveting and powerful portrayal of Teiramund, summoning up the guts and strength to make this character come alive with virility, masculinity, and his signature villain baritone voice that he has been very well known for. It's no surprise that he is specialized in roles like Alberich and Pizarro and even the likes of Klingsor and Anfortas, and of course Telramund. And it really shows the great experience that he has had with singing a lot of these villainous and nasty parts who also have a little bit of humanity, but maybe not that much. He's still an absolute pro when it comes to singing all of these nasty parts, and he manages to hold nothing back whatsoever. Gunther Greusbeck was, as to be expected, really excellent as King Henry the Fowler, known in German as König Heinrich der Vogler. And I also saw this gentleman 7 months ago perform this particular role, and even on an audio stream about 3 months ago when he performed this role at the Wiener Staatsoper. What more can I expect from a basso profondo slash cantante like Herr Günther Greusbeck? He was epic in this role. Oh my word, was he freaking epic as always. He was noble, he was powerful, and he was absolutely strong all throughout the evening. He held nothing back whatsoever, and he was just in his element, portraying such regal characters like this, which should be no surprise as I've also seen this gentleman perform the role of the Landgraf Hermann in the live stream version of Tannhäuser from the Met, and he did fabulously in this role as well. And here, I thought he was able to exceed himself every time. He does not disappoint whatsoever, and he continues to excel with such flying colors. Markus Brück was an excellent herald. He was able to make the greatest use of a character like this with such aplomb, such dignity, and such virility that I would also love to see him perform the role of Telramund one day. He definitely has that round, rich, dramatic baritone voice, which he has been building up for many years, and he is definitely in his element when it comes to singing all of these wonderful, dramatic baritone parts, and even some of the baryton noble parts. He is definitely wonderful, as to be expected from someone as grand and intelligent and awesome like Herr Markus Brück. So overall, the main singers were absolutely excellent all throughout, and even the four noblemen consisting of Paul Kaufmann's sturdy, light lyric tenor voice, Andrew Dickinson's equally sturdy and mellifluous light lyric tenor voice, John Carpenter's noble lyric baritone voice, and Stephen Barkey's sturdy, strong, and handsome baritone voice. Their voices blended excellently, and I also have to give my kudos to the four young ladies who sang the roles of the bridesmaids, and they are Saskia Meusel, Andrea Schwarzbach, Cordula Messa, and Martina Metzler, as their voices blended gorgeously. So overall, the singing from the main singers to the secondary singers was just excellent all throughout, and I really have to throw my hat off to Madame Elisabete Matos for a very wonderful role debut as Ortrud, and the conducting done by Maestro Axel Koba was really solid all throughout. He was able to bring the orchestra and the chorus along, and even though there were some areas where they didn't really go 100% together, they were still able to be synchronized, and you could definitely tell that there is a sense of mutuality between the singers, the orchestra, the chorus, and everyone involved, and the conductor and the chorus master. You could definitely tell that everyone went together. So overall, I have to give my hat off to Madame Elisabete Matos for a job well done in her role debut as Ortrud. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in next time for my long overdue review of Diana Damrao's concert at Le Poisson Rouge at New York City. So until then, good night, everybody.